Hey everybody, thanks for being with us. We have put together a half hour of some of the most watched or commented on Right on the Money episodes from the past year. Now, chances are you didn't catch all of them and they may be able to help you out in some ways. Now, the first two episodes are about some pitfalls for homeowners, and if that doesn't scare you off, the third installment here is for those of you who are in the ever-changing market for real estate. What is something that many homeowners don't think about much? If you said squatting, that is a remarkably obscure but correct guess. Squatting isn't something we think much about. Let me get out of this so I can feel my legs again. So I'm a squatter if I go into your vacant house and inhabit it. This is not a common thing, but as Newsweek pointed out a few months ago, Dallas was cited by the National Rental Home Council as the city with the second highest number of these home takeovers. Now, this is usually something that you have to be concerned with if you have a second home, a vacation home, or a rental property. But recently on Y'all-itics, the unofficial political podcast of Texas that I co-host, we talked with a Dallas area homeowner who was having some work done at her home, but she had to take an extended trip to another state to take care of her mother. That's when she says the handyman squatted and made her home his and absolutely trashed the place, like hazardous waste trashed. Now, you've got to hear her story. It is unbelievable, including the part where police couldn't really do anything about this because Texas law isn't very strong on squatting. We get into how lawmakers are planning to change that, though. But something that hit me in all of this was that even if your homeowner's insurance is current, it may not cover you if a squatter moves in or if a lot of other bad things happen to your property if it is considered vacant or unoccupied. Now, usually that's after it hasn't been lived in for 30 days or more, but that number can vary by policy.
So one of the things I tell people is, one, check your homeowner's policy and make sure that it's at least 30 days or more. And if you're going to be gone for more than 30 days for any reason, you need to get a vacancy addendum that will cover it no matter what. But I've had people who were like, I checked, mine's 14 days. I had to call them, or, I'm going to be gone for 6 weeks on an extended vacation, so I had to call them.
So, note to self, tell home insurance company about upcoming month-long vacation. Second note to self, talk employer into month-long vacation. Seriously though, something to think about here if you're gonna be away from home for a while, including if you have to go take care of a relative somewhere else. This woman has a heck of a cautionary tale, and she's sharing it with anyone who will listen, including Texas lawmakers who have heard her testimony. So yeah, I've been financial fighting again, and it is as bad as it looks too, but you should see the other guy. Okay, so let's go back in time. Without realizing it, I've been taking a slow, long-term beating. Last year, I, like so many of you, had to have my roof replaced after it was beaten up by hail. Now, I had previously set my hail deductible at $4,500. Kudos to me for paying that last year, and kudos to me for having total replacement cost coverage, not actual cash value, because that meant that the rest of the expense for that very expensive roof replacement had to be paid by my homeowner's insurance, and kudos to them for doing that. That, however, is where the kudos end, because also like many of you, my homeowner's insurance has been going up and up. Recently, I started wondering, shouldn't some of that increase have been mitigated by my brand new roof because it has less of a risk of failing? So I chatted with my insurer by text, which I love because now we've got the conversation in writing. I asked them, when do your records show my roof was replaced? Okay, so the correct answer is 2023. The partial credit answer would have been 2009-ish when it was also replaced. The absolutely incorrect and impossible response would be 1992. They answered 1992. I don't know where they got that. They don't know where they got that. Anyway, I demanded a recalculation of my premium and what my insurer might owe me now retroactively for their long-term mistakes, and they responded, we'll update the roof age, but there's no discount for new or younger roofs. When they told me that, I punched my own eyes. I mean, come on, guys. The age of the roof, which is one of the most expensive components of a house that affects a lot of other components, is a huge factor in determining risk and therefore premiums. A simple Google search tells me that. Insurers have told me that. The Texas Department of Insurance tells me that in this explanation of how insurance costs are calculated. It's right there. And I even immediately found an article published by my insurer that said a new roof could lower your premium and that roof age is one of the biggest risk factors for a home. I escalated to a supervisor there and they confirmed, yeah, it matters and my rate will be adjusted. And again, I'm pushing for retroactive adjustment since they were wrong with the previous replacement date and then wrong again when they paid a lot last year for a new roof and yet still thought that my roof was 32 years old. Now, if yours has been replaced in recent years, and a lot of them have, you might want to check the insurance company's records, and if their answers are nonsensical, go up the food chain. Sometimes I read a lot of financial articles about one topic just to see how deficient or confusing they are. And having just said that out loud makes me realize what a sad and grumpy hobby that sounds like. So I also play tennis and pickleball and travel a lot. Back to my sad hobby though, I have been reading a lot lately about the big change in how homes are bought and sold, and much of the info has been incomplete or kind of unclear. This is all the result of a lawsuit settlement worth hundreds of millions of dollars that became effective this month. The major change is this. It used to be that on the database that real estate agents use to list properties for sale, called the Multiple Listing Service or MLS, an agent repping a home seller could say, hey, all you buyer's agents, yeah, you. The seller is paying a commission of 6% of the sales price. So if you bring the buyer and we get the deal done, we'll go halvesies. I get 3% and you get 3%. Because of this settlement, though, none of that talk about the commission is allowed anymore in the MLS. So buyers beware. You have to negotiate and be responsible for paying your agent now. If the agent uses the MLS, your payment agreement with them must be specific and agreed upon before you even look at one property.
That consumer will have to sign a written agreement outlining the services that that agent is providing that day, that week, that month, that year, for a group of properties or just a single property, and what they'll be paid for that service.
Buyers, you may be feeling overwhelmed right now because declining but still high mortgage rates are going to cost you, and because in major Texas markets, this would be a 20% down payment for a median home right now. And now you're supposed to come up with possibly many thousands more to pay an agent who often used to be paid by the seller. But hold on here. Everything in real estate is negotiable. So buyer, you can still ask the sellers if they will cover your agent's commission. And sellers, you can still offer the buyer that you will pay their agent. That offer can't be on the MLS, but your agent can tell their agent in lots of other ways.
There's a lot more active dialogue preemptively, which I think is great. You can put it on a sign writer. You can do marketing flyers. You can have a QR code on your sign. You can put it on social media.
Up to now, many sellers have offset that compensation with a higher home price. Now, though, thanks to Ashley Gentry, the president at MetroTex, we're going to have what we're just going to call the deli meat principle.
Jason, if you got 5 houses all on the same street and they're all relatively the same condition, but some are willing to offer compensation, well, now you got to look at that price per pound a little differently and now say, hey, I might have to market myself a little bit more like bologna while my neighbors are roast beef.
Last thing, before I go make a sandwich now, if you sold a home in recent years, you may be eligible for a payout from these huge real estate commission settlements. Funny thing is, once you spend all that money and get settled into a home, you start looking around and thinking, I want to get out into that world and go see it. Now, I had some rough learning experiences with travel over the last year, and I decided to share some of those lessons in these next couple of episodes. And again, if those don't drive you away, a helpful travel hack that some people still don't know about. Last month, I returned from a trip, and then 3 full days later, my bag got back as well, delivered inside a plastic bag. Let me get it and show you how it came back to me. It's got some new features now as I pull it out of its plastic bag. See those? Big new holes in it now, which are not really a big deal because it doesn't zipper shut anymore anyway, because it looks like this now, the zipper does. Which means that, by the way, all of my stuff also fell out somewhere and looked like it was run over repeatedly. No one has really explained what happened. I asked Air France about all of this for this story, and they didn't respond. On a parallel track, I have been asking for compensation, including going through the process of having to prove that my bag was damaged, even though, again, this is how they sent it back to me. They wanted a bunch of pictures. I had those, but they all had to fit into a file size of 9 megabytes, which is not very big. So a tip here, if you run into something like this, there are programs that will reduce the file size of an image. I just made PowerPoint slides with multiple images on each one of them and then converted each slide into one picture that wasn't a large file. Now, even after the pics, they wanted me to check with a repair shop about maybe just getting it fixed. There are shops that will give you a free estimate. The determination on mine was really quick and emphatic. Also, this was critical to the process. They wanted to see my luggage claim tag to help prove that it was mine. As we've discussed before, save those. I used to just toss them out. Speaking of tossed out, some of my items were not recovered. Most of them were, though, and even though they had been run over or something, most of it was fixable after a lot of washing. After a ton of back and forth with the airline, almost a month later, they have now agreed to pay to cover the things that were lost or destroyed. Here's the thing about that payment, though. After I gave them custody of my bag, and this resulted, they wanted me to entrust to them my bank name, bank country, account holder name, account number, and routing number, and they wanted me to send all of that by email so they could make a direct deposit. How about I just put all of that important info into this suitcase, for that matter, and just drag it around an airport to see if it can all stay in? Very bad idea there. Experian, the credit agency, warns that if these numbers get into the wrong hands, you could fall victim to severe financial fraud. If someone has your bank account and routing number, they could make unauthorized transfers and payments, create counterfeit checks, and even launder money through your account. So I'll take a paper check delivered to me. Hopefully that'll arrive in better shape than my poor suitcase did. Okay, hang on, I'm just about all set here. All right, I think I'm ready for my 7-hour transatlantic flight. Well, maybe it wasn't this extreme, but it felt like it when I took a trip earlier this month to Europe because I was expecting beautiful, wide open spaces, not just in Switzerland, but on my long-haul flights to and from Europe because I had paid for and selected the coveted exit row seats where there is no one in front of you and you can stretch way out. But at check-in, I was reassigned to seats without that added legroom. It happened going there and coming back. A ticketing agent at the airline told me it's not uncommon for more than one passenger to hold a ticket for the same extra legroom seat. What? When I asked later as journalist Jason, I was told this usually happens when an aircraft has been swapped out with one that has fewer of those extra legroom seats, so someone is forced to give theirs up. That someone was me this time, so as passenger Jason, I complained to the airline. And as I was neatly folded into my seat for a long flight, I consoled myself by thinking, at least they're probably processing the refund right now for the more spacious seats that I paid for but didn't get. Turns out that thinking was almost as absurd as the thought that it might be a cute pic if I posed on tiny Swiss playground equipment. Nope, delete. I contacted airline customer service by email to inquire about a refund. Their responses were very form letter, as though they weren't reading or comprehending what I was writing, which was mainly that I just wanted my money back. So one of their gate agents told me, if you really want this fixed, you gotta post a message directly to the airline publicly on X, because they have a whole team that constantly monitors that for complaints. So when I asked later as journalist Jason, the airline said, quote, no, 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 3 no's to that idea, suggesting that the Help Me section on their website was better. That said, when I did complain to them on X, they almost immediately responded. Now, they still had it twisted. I had to show my email receipt for the seat upgrades and the seats I was originally assigned versus the ones on my new boarding passes, because they still had that wrong in their system. So even though their policy is to refund in situations like this, it wasn't automatic. I had to pursue them, demand a refund, and even prove they didn't deliver. Now, I was told that this is usually easier, that my situation was a rare experience. And we already know that rare experiences sometimes are not good. My advice during your trip and for a little while after, save your travel receipts and that pocket full of boarding passes that you amass when you're flying. I did that, and I'm told that my refund is being processed. Okay, full disclosure. In my most recent episode of Right on the Money, I made a big mistake. The story was about time off and how a lot of workers usually don't use all of the vacation days they are allotted. But I made an error when I recalled some of my previous time off because my productivity after seeing those pictures has been wrecked. And another vacation now is pretty much the only thing that's going to fix that. Now, if I did it like I did in some of those past trips, I would now decide on a couple of places I would like to go, and then I'd try to find the best airfares to get there. But now I travel backwards, letting the flight deal map dictate where I'm going and even when I'm going in some cases, and then I ask for the time off. It is the new way of doing it. 62% of travelers surveyed recently said that they do this now. I just booked a trip this way, in fact, so now I can be productive again. I used Google Flights for this one, which has an Explore tool now. It allows you to punch in where you're leaving from and the dates, and then you hit Explore, and you'll see which destinations have the best deals. Then you can check to see maybe if other dates for that destination might produce an even better airfare. Kayak and Momondo have a similar Explore feature, and in fact, those sites tied for first place in a Frommer's ranking of this year's best airfare search sites. They reported that Momondo consistently found the best prices. Google Flights came in at number 10 on that list. Now, I like to shop using a couple of these different sites and then comparing that to what is actually on the airline's website. Google Flights, as I told you last year, started guaranteeing some airfares, the ones with the little badge next to them, where they say that they monitor prices until you depart and that they refund you the difference if it goes below what you paid by more than $5. And they have expanded this to some flights now that you find through Google Flights, but book on another site. So look for that badge if you're searching there. On that subject, several sites also allow you to set alerts for a particular trip so that you can get notifications when the price for that route dips. Okay, so now I had to also fit this into this special as well. You know how they say it's better to give than it is to receive? Well, a lot of us apparently believe it's better to return than to do either one of those things. So where are all of our returns ending up? Did you do like I did and have a second Christmas this month where you returned some gifts and then picked out what you really wanted? If so, by chance, does any of this look familiar?
You get the generator to a rug, to a TV.
A bathtub.
Yeah, a bathtub.
Step ladder.
A bedding material.
And here are our kayaks.
Here are the kayaks.
Last year, we returned $743 billion of merchandise, or more simply,
Lots and lots of product.
when you send a product back to a store or an online retailer these days, many of them don't even deal with it anymore. Instead, the merchandise gets shipped off to huge warehouses like this one in Garland, where returns are sorted, tested, and resold in what has become an expansive secondary market.
And it keeps growing year after year after year. It's a massive world that people just don't even realize or even understand. They bring something back and they just think it's going to go back, go on a shelf and be done with it, but they don't realize this is what happens.
This is one of 8 warehouses run by Liquidity Services, which is just one return reselling company. And just at this one location, they go through about 30,000 returned items every month.
And did all of this just get here today?
This just arrived today.
Okay. And more will be coming today?
Yep, today, tomorrow, the rest of the week.
So any given day, you have no idea what's showing up?
No idea. That's right.
Post-Christmas, as you would imagine, is their busiest time of the year.
So does anybody get to take off in January? Or is that a no-no?
Yeah, that doesn't happen, not in January.
It looks like a lot of people got linens for Christmas.
They are now deciding what can be resold or refurbished and then resold so that the original seller at least gets some money back.
We're giving our clients back a recovery, right, they wouldn't normally get.
And on the other end,
It is a treasure hunt. Everyone loves it.
treasure hunters can shop, bidding in online auctions to buy all kinds of items in small batches or by the pallet or even by the truckload at cut rate prices.
Anywhere from an 85 to 90% discount from the original MSRP.
We saw a successful auction bidder picking up a whole load of televisions.
A moving truck here full of TVs.
That's right, yep. And again, you have people who are reselling them.
This might be a business
Yep.
that they run. Could you make a living doing just that?
Yeah, absolutely. But then you got
And speaking of TVs,
one of these bad boys.
What is that? That's huge. It's what?
100-inch.
A 100-inch TV.
and that's where this story has to come to an end. I had to get out of there after that temptation. They had about 1,000 TVs in that warehouse, and they're about to get many more of them. The post-Super Bowl wave of TV returns. I didn't know this was a thing, but it is. I also wanted to highlight this next piece from the middle of 2024 again, just in case you are one of the many people still driving around with a very problematic car. Okay, this is going to be a bit of a stretch, but just stay with me because it's all going to make sense. Or maybe it won't, but I really want to share these YouTube clips with you where people have very accurately described to mechanics what their broken cars sound like.
Whenever I roll the driver window down, it sounds like somebody screaming.
Totally a scream. Here's another.
This customer came in as their engine now sounds like a video game.
So spot on. Another.
Truck sounds like a snare drum.
I could watch these all day. Okay, just one more. They're all so accurate. Oh yeah, I'm supposed to make this make sense now. So there's another potentially deadly problem with a lot of Texas vehicles that doesn't make any sound. It's when there's a counterfeit airbag installed. This can happen when a car is wrecked and its airbag deploys. The car is then repaired, but where does the airbag replacement come from? Carfax says that when a counterfeit is used, it's usually pulled from another vehicle out at a salvage yard. That inflatable cushion is not definitely defective, but it's also definitely not new. If you bought the car used, you might not know it, but consumer beware, Carfax tallied the number of vehicles that are back out on the roads following an airbag deployment in the last 2 years. Now, since it isn't known where their airbag replacements came from, those vehicles could have possibly counterfeit airbags. Carfax found 206,000 Texas autos that match that description. That's the most in the country. In fact, it equals the combined number from the second and third placers in the top 10 states on the possibly counterfeit airbag list. You can look your car up to see if it had an airbag deployment reported before you owned it. You can also have a mechanic examine a car's airbags before or after you buy it. And you should scrutinize a replacement airbag before it's put into your car. And before we go, like before we really go, I finally completed my death checklist series with this installment about wills. We're almost dead ready as we finish the death checklist we started a year ago. Admittedly, I procrastinated with wills. Don't judge me, you probably did too. It's estimated that only 1 in 3 of us has one. And if you're wondering who really even needs a will, here's your answer.
Absolutely everybody. Everybody needs a will. People have a lot of misconceptions. They think, oh, I don't have much property. but you still may care who gets your heirloom items, the plates from grandma, the gun from grandpa, the coin, the family pictures, the photograph albums.
Also, the kids. Who gets them if they become guardianless minors? Or, let's say,
the surviving parent dies and there's 3 kids. Well, each one owns 1/3 of every item, 1/3 of every fork, picture, pair of underwear, pants, couch, TV, whatever.
That's Texas Tech law professor Jerry Beyer. He is in the Estate Planning National Hall of Fame. Seriously, that exists. He is a Hall of Famer, and he's not trying to get our business. So he's the perfect person to ask, who should we turn to prepare a will? He wasn't crazy about younger Jason's idea years ago to do it with a cheap online program.
A lot of these online programs are getting much better, but they can't account for everything that an actual attorney looking at your precise situation would do it. As lawyers, we consider people who use the self-help methods to be nothing more than generating more income for us to straighten out the mess they create later on.
Now, there are online programs that do offer help from an actual attorney. Or some of you might have gone the budget-friendly route of paying a little extra for your workplace benefits to get access to legal help and free will preparation. I tried that too years ago.
I love your idea about the benefit programs, because if you have that available to you, yes, you may not be getting an estate planning expert, but you're going to get someone who knows a lot more than you do about the process of doing it. So, you know, it's like saying you certainly have the ability to remove your own appendix without going to the hospital if you want to, but it's not really a smart idea.
Ouch, just thinking about that. Point taken. Speaking of pain, he really recommends, especially for complex wills, that you go ahead and spend the hundreds, maybe even thousands of dollars to use an attorney who is board certified in estate planning and probate, or an attorney who is listed by the American College of Trust and Estate Counsel, because
I have seen way too many attorney drafted wills that had issues in them because the person who drafted it was not an estate planning expert.
Professor Beyer says, think about it and make notes about what you want to give and to whom. Then find an estate planning attorney. Then get it done. And then check it at least once a year to see if it needs updates. The takeaway there, get it done. Make this the year you do it. I have more information on all of the articles that I wrote for each one of those stories. I have included all of those links in a mega story that we are calling the Right on the Money Special. You can look for it on our landing page, WFAA.com/rightonthemoney. And thanks for watching.